Oh man, this was so much fun to put together. Coming up, it's a countdown of the top 5 hit resurrections of the rock era. These are songs that made it into the upper reaches of the charts not once, but twice on separate campaigns, and there's great stories here. Our list includes a song about a homicidal cowboy that lingered in a legend's mind for years before being recorded. Then there's the hit song that had 2 versions competing on the charts by the same band, and the lead vocal was decided by a coin toss. Then there's the controversial ballad about a 16-year-old that had radio programmers sweating. A song so ingeniously full of metaphors it managed to slip by the moral majority. And finally, a timeless classic sung by a high school kid who cut the session short because he had to race back home to get his homework done. The countdown is coming up next on Professor of Rock, including some interviews. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you ever got high on crushed up Smarties, you're gonna dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Yeah, I had a friend who used to do that. Kids, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Oh man. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the bell so you never miss out on our interviews or our videos, the big red button. Also, a reminder to catch our radio show, syndicated radio show, Classic Rock You with the Professor. If your station doesn't carry it, call and request it. You can listen online at Classic Rock U, that's the letter U.com, classicrocku.com, and I'll link to it below. And also check out our t-shirt of the day. We got David Bowie, we got Bing Crosby. Christmas spirit, baby. 80stees.com. Thousands of the coolest shirts you'll ever find. Click the link below or the link right here to get yours today. So on this channel, we have revelations, right? We have evolution. Today, we have resurrections. We're going to count down the top 5 hit resurrections of the rock era. Now, each of these 5 songs managed to break the top 20 on the Billboard Hot 100 twice, 2 different campaigns. Man, so many magnificent stories here. Plus, we have one of the artists with us. Let's get started. So coming in at number 5, I've got The Twist by Chubby Checker. Check this out. The Twist wasn't just the ultimate comeback hit of the rock era. It was a cultural earthquake that shook up the music scene and dance floors around the world like nothing before. Come on, baby. Let's do the twist. Elvis Presley may have made dancing a hot topic with his provocative moves on The Ed Sullivan Show in September of '56. But I tell you, Chubby Checker took it to a whole new level with The Twist. He ignited a nationwide dance craze, introducing what he famously describes as dancing apart to the beat. Come on, baby, let's do the twist. The Twist exploded into a pop culture sensation when Chubby Checker took it to new heights, but actually the song's origins trace back to 1958. Hank Ballard and the Midnighters originally released it as the B-side to Teardrops on Your Letter, drawing inspiration from the emerging Twist dance craze. Now, Ballard's version made a modest impact. Let's talk about Chubby Checker. Born Ernest Evans, Chubby Checker was born to a poor family in South Carolina and said his family lived like Amish people. They had no electricity and no running water. So Chubby Checker was inspired to get into music when he saw Ernest Tubb perform at the fair when he was only 4 years old. He knew he needed to be a musician. So years later, while he was still navigating the angst-ridden halls of his high school, Chubby Checker stepped into the Cameo Parkway studio on Locust Street in Philadelphia and recorded The Twist. With producer Dave Apple, he guided the session along, and the track came together really quickly, which was key since Chubby didn't have all day to hang out in the studio. I mean, he was a high school kid. It's really funny. Chubby still recalls the moment when producer Dave Apple called him up with an unusual request. He said, "Chubby, I want you to come up here and sing The Twist." And Chubby was surprised. He's like, "Isn't that a Hank Ballard song?" But Dave was insistent, "Just come on up here and sing it. I've got the music all ready to go." Now, Chubby was a huge fan of Hank Ballard, so he knew the song well. He headed to the studio, he was ready to record, and after 4 takes, Dave pointed out, "Chubby, on the line, Daddy's sleeping and Mama ain't around, it's a little flat." Now, Chubby, who was not getting really good grades in school at this time, was surprisingly eager to get back to his homework, and he said, with some anxiety, teenage anxiety. Dave, I got to go home and do my homework. Now, despite lasting approximately 45 minutes, that session, short and sweet as it was, would soon become one of the biggest moments in music history. It was DJ Porky Chadwick's early airplay in Pittsburgh that really got the ball rolling. But actually, it was Chubby's unforgettable performance on Dick Clark's American Bandstand that truly launched the twist into the stratosphere. I mean, tens of millions of people watched it, and in an instant, the song was everywhere. People across the country were hitting the dance floor and the exercise rooms to do the twist. Sorry, that was my version of the twist. So it shot to number 1 in 1960. But it made an even bigger splash when it hit number 1 again in 1962. To this day, it remains the only song to ever reach the number 1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100 2 different times, an incredible feat that sealed its place in music history. So coming in at number 4, I got Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers. Man, this is crazy. Unchained Melody has been recorded over 1,500 times by more than 670 artists in various languages, according to the song's publishing administrator. Among the many versions, the Righteous Brothers' rendition with Bobby Hatfield's iconic solo became the definitive version, vaulting into a jukebox and radio classic. I need your love. Bobby Hatfield took the lead on the vocal for Unchained Melody, delivering a solo performance that would later inspire him to record other versions of the song under his own name. According to his partner Bill Medley, the duo had agreed to each do at least one solo track per album. Now, both were eager to sing Unchained Melody for their 4th album. But Hatfield, he chose heads, and he won the coin toss, securing the iconic solo for himself. Now, believe it or not, Unchained Melody was originally released as the B-side to Hung On You. Intended to be the follow-up to Just Once in My Life. However, radio DJs bypassed the A-side, gravitating instead to the B-side track, Unchained Melody. Actually, eccentric producer Phil Spector, known for sometimes placing a throwaway song on the B-side, was furious when DJs ignored the A-side and played Unchained Melody instead, because it was not an original. In a bid to stop its airplay, he even called radio stations to tell them to stop playing it, play the other side. His efforts were in vain, though. Went to number 4 in the Billboard Hot 100 and number 14 in the UK in 65. This is where the story gets really good. So in 1990, Unchained Melody, of course, made a big comeback on the US Billboard charts after being featured in the blockbuster film Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, right? That year, 2 versions of the song charted in the US, the original and a newly recorded version. So Bill Medley was eager to release the original recording due to the song's resurgence in popularity, but he was told there was licensing issues. Although Bobby Hatfield's voice had changed quite a bit since the original recording, and he had trouble hitting those famous high notes, they decided to re-record it for Curb Records. They couldn't lose this opportunity with it ringing in people's ears. The new version was released as both a cassette and a CD single. While it received only limited airplay, it sold well. It reached number 19 on the charts. The re-recorded version was certified platinum by the RIAA on January 10, 1991, and it even earned a Grammy Award nomination. The situation became a bit complicated, though. In 1990, the original 1965 Righteous Brothers recording of Unchained Melody was reissued by the oldies label Verb Forecast, under licensing from Polygram Records, which had acquired the rights years earlier. This version got significant airplay and even topped the US Adult Contemporary chart for 2 weeks. However, sales were limited. In the US, it was only available as a 45 RPM single, and it peaked at number 13, primarily driven by airplay. So for 8 weeks, both the original and the re-recorded versions charted simultaneously on the Billboard Hot 100, making the Righteous Brothers the first act to have 2 versions of the exact same song in the top 20 at the exact same time.
Oh, my love, oh, my love.
The re-released song reached number 1 in the UK, where it stayed for 4 weeks, becoming the top-selling single in 1990. By 2017, it had sold 1.17 million copies in the UK. The 1990 reissue also topped the charts in Australia, Austria, Ireland, the Netherlands, and in New Zealand. Coming in at number 3 on our countdown of the top 5 hit resurrections of the rock era, gotta go with Into the Night by Benny Mardones. This power ballad, featuring one of the most incredible vocal performances of the entire rock era, it was struck by controversy, which ultimately kept it from being a bigger single the first time around.
And show you love like you've never.
Benny, God rest his soul, he told me the story of his signature hit, and it was both interesting and very sad. Here's what he told me.
There was a family in my apartment building. Their father was a set designer, a struggling set designer. And there were 2 girls and a boy. The girl, Heidi, was 16 years old. Her sister was 17. Her brother was 15. I was sort of the local rock resident in the building, you know, from Thank God for Girls.
The album, yep.
You know, one day my doorbell rings and I open it up and the 3 of them are standing there and they're in tears. And it turns out the father just up and left. And apparently his ship had come in, and instead of coming home and saying, we're moving out of the ghetto, instead he took off with somebody from the chorus line and left his family destitute.
Gosh.
And I brought the kids in my apartment and I hugged them all. I said, it's all going to work out. It's going to work out. And I had no idea how it was going to work out, but I wanted to bring them comfort at the moment. And so I said, Heidi, I'm going to give you $50 a week to walk my basset hound, Zanky, every morning before school. And Sean, you come to my apartment after school every day. And I would give him like $20 to go get me a pack of cigarettes or a gallon of milk. And I'd let him keep the change. One morning, Robert and I were up all night being bad, trying to write a song. And all night we're struggling with dun, 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 dun. And we worked on it for 5 hours and couldn't come up with an opening line that
would really grab people.
And all of a sudden I hear the door turning and I go, oh my God, it's daylight. Cause I used to black out my windows. And in walks Heidi, dressed for school, mini skirt, stacked heels, 16 going on 21, you know. She said, have you been up all night? We were like, yes, we have been. Trying to write a song. She said, come on, Zanky. And she takes it and she said, I'll see you in about 20 minutes. And she left and Bobby went, oh, Lord. I said, pal, she's just 16 years old. Leave her alone. And I said, play that lick again. Dun, 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 dun. I went, she's just 16 years old. Leave her alone, they say. Bobby, just keep doing that. Separated by fools who don't know what love is yet. But I want you to know if I could fly. In other words, if things were different, I'd pick you up and take you into the night and show you a love like you've never seen.
The lyrical controversy surrounding Into the Night began right after its release, with radio stations initially hesitant to play the song because of its opening line. You know, they were hesitant because of the she's just 16 years old, leave her alone, they say.
She's just 16 years old.
It wasn't until Polydor Records issued a letter explaining Benny's perspective on the song's origins, the stations felt comfortable enough to add it to their playlists. Into the Night stands out as one of only 10 songs to ever make it to the top 20 of the Billboard Hot 100 twice. First peaking at number 11 in 1980, and later reaching number 20 in 1989. The song's resurgence was sparked by a Where Are They Now segment on an Arizona radio station, caught the attention of LA DJ Scott Shannon. He added the song to his playlist, and by May 6, 1989, it was back on the national charts. Its revival peaked at number 20 in early July. Coming in at number 2, Little Red Corvette by Prince. Now, the inspiration for Little Red Corvette came to His Purple Majesty after a long, grueling all-night recording session. He actually fell asleep in backup singer Lisa Coleman's 1964 Mercury Montclair Marauder. During several catnaps, the lyrics came to him in fragments. Eventually, he was able to piece them together without needing to sleep. Though it was often reported that the car was a pink Edsel, Lisa, who performed on Little Red Corvette, later clarified that it was actually a Marauder, much more stylish than an Edsel. Prince had helped her buy it in auction in 1980. You know, it's funny, to this day, I still have a friend who swears that this song is really about a red Corvette. He's like, Little Red Corvette is the coolest song about a car that's ever been written. And I try to tell him, and I'm like, who's going to tell him? Anyone familiar with Little Red Corvette knows this song is all about sex. I mean, it is Prince.
I guess I should know by the way you popped your car sideways.
That line, Trojan, some of them used, a little risque. I try to point that out to my friend, but he's like, no, I was talking about something else.
She had a pocket full of horses, Trojan and some of them used.
But, you know, he did keep it ambiguous enough to avoid offending most listeners and to pull the wool over some people's eyes.
Guess I should have closed my eyes when you drove me to the place where you...
Prince, of course, cleverly worked in automobile metaphors, condoms, jockeys, and wild horses into the lyrics of Little Red Corvette.
When I saw all the pictures of the jockeys that were there before me.
In contrast to some of his earlier work, which was more overtly sexual and often too bold for radio stations to play, Little Red Corvette struck a balance that made it more palatable for a wider audience.
Saturday night, I guess that makes it all right. You say, baby.
A lot of people forget this was Prince's first top 10 hit on the Billboard Hot 100, a milestone that helped catapult him to superstardom and put him mano-a-mano with Michael Jackson. And of course, Prince quickly lived up to that billing with electrifying live performances and an astonishingly prolific output of music, movies, and videos. Released in 1983 as the second single from 1999. It hit number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 and was also his first track to perform better on the pop chart than on the R&B chart. In 1985, the song was reissued as a double A-side with 1999. That one peaked at number 2 on the UK singles chart in January of that year. Then it charted again, hit the top 20 when, sadly, Prince passed away. Coming in at number 1, we got a song that performed the hat trick. It charted 3 different times. I've got the bombastic masterpiece, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Is this the real life? Is this just...
As the song's creator, Freddie Mercury, called it, a mock opera. At 5 minutes and 55 seconds, the track is just lush with a unique blend of 3 different songs that Freddie had written. Queen, along with co-producer Roy Thomas Baker, recorded the track at 5 different studios between August and September of '75. Back then, the recording process was pretty complicated. Because of the tech limitations of the time, the band had to bounce the tracks across 8 generations of 24-track tape, which meant they used almost 200 tracks just for overdubs. Now, the song itself is a playful parody of opera with dramatic choruses, sarcastic spoken parts, and even some distorted Italian phrases. You know, a lot of people don't realize that back in the late 60s, Freddie Mercury was already starting to sketch out what would become Bohemian Rhapsody. According to his friend Chris Smith, who played keyboards in the band Smile with him, Freddie would often tinker around on the piano, playing bits and pieces of songs that he was working on, you know, just kind of messing around. And one of those early ideas that he had was a song that he called the Cowboy Song. It even included lyrics that would later find their way into the final version of Bohemian Rhapsody, like the iconic line, "Mama just killed a man."
Just killed a man.
a song about a homicidal cowboy. Very interesting. Roy Thomas Baker, who began collaborating with Queen in 1972, has a vivid memory of the first time Freddie played him the opening ballad section. It was in Freddie's flat. He sat down at the piano and played through the beginning of the song. And then with a smile, he stopped and he said, "And this is where the opera section comes in." And just like that, they left to go grab dinner, as if this groundbreaking moment was just another part of their everyday routine. It's kind of how it was with Freddie Mercury. The man was just a genius. Brian Wilson, the leader of the Beach Boys, called it the most competitive thing that's come along in ages. He said it felt like a fulfillment of an answer to a teenage prayer of artistic music. So cool. I love that. Bohemian Rhapsody dominated the UK singles chart for 9 weeks, with an additional 5 weeks at #1 after Freddie Mercury's death in 1991. It is now the third best-selling single of all time in the UK. The song also topped the charts in countries like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, and the Netherlands, and has sold over 6 million copies worldwide. Now, in the United States, it originally peaked at #9 back in 1976. But then, when it was featured in the 1992 film Wayne's World, it soared to #2. Everybody remembers the classic scene in the car where Wayne and Garth and their friends just rock out to the song.
Mamma mia, mamma mia, mamma mia, let me go. Beelzebub.
It's one of the pivotal moments of Gen X's living. But getting that moment on screen, it wasn't as simple as hitting play. Penelope Spheris, the film's director, wasn't sure it was the right fit at all as a song. She actually contemplated several Led Zeppelin tracks. I mean, after all, Wayne and Garth, the iconic duo, were all about the gritty, no-frills, hard rock and metal. Not really the bombastic operatic style that Queen brought to the table. But Mike Myers, who played Wayne Campbell, was adamant. He believed that Bohemian Rhapsody was the perfect track to capture the absurd, wild energy of this scene. He knew it would work perfectly, and he fought for it. The song wasn't just a piece of music, it was a punchline, a moment of pure cinematic fun. Just so much fun, that scene. The timing was interesting too, right? By 1992, when Wayne's World hit theaters, classic rock stations had largely moved on from Bohemian Rhapsody. People don't remember that. They think it was always a hit. But music scholar Theodore Grossick, he notes that the song's nearly 6-minute length had caused it to fade from the airwaves, and it was often not heard in its entirety. But by starting the scene in the middle of the song, after the famous narrative lyrics had already passed, the film stripped away the usual context of the song. And the audience was left to experience the music purely for its energy and its raw power without the familiar commentary of the lyrics.
I think we'll go with a little Bohemian Rhapsody, gentlemen.
Good call.
In the end, Mike Myers was exactly right. The song became a centerpiece of the film, one of those you gotta see this moment, and it helped to propel the soundtrack to massive success. And of course, it cemented Wayne's World in pop culture history. It was already kind of cemented in SNL, but this just took it worldwide.
Garth, pull over.
Oh man, come on.
Meanwhile, the iconic music video from Queen left a lasting impact on Mike Myers. Now, when he was tasked with using the song in Wayne's World, he feared that the band's original video would upset them. He felt as though he had whizzed on a Picasso, as he said, and asked the record company to apologize to Queen on his behalf. Now, to his surprise, the band's response was simply, "Thank you for using our song." Mike Myers was in awe, and he responded, "Thank you for even letting me touch the hem of your garments." I love that. The reason it's #1 on my list, with all these great songs, after the release of the 2018 biopic Bohemian Rhapsody, the song actually soared to new heights. If you can imagine that. It became the most streamed track from the 20th century. By 2021, it was certified diamond in the US for achieving a combined 10 million units in digital sales and streams, making it one of the best-selling songs of all time. And the only rock song to be resurrected 3 times. I truly believe that Bohemian Rhapsody is a classic rock track. It will never lose its power as one of the most ambitious songs ever recorded. Definitely one of the most creative. maybe the greatest rock song of all time, and is arguably, you got Stairway to Heaven, and you've got arguments can be made by other bands, but certainly what a trick it's done, the hat trick really, for boomers, Gen Xers, millennials across all the world. There you have it. That's my top 5 tracks that came into the top 10, not once, but twice on 2 different campaigns. Let me know your memories of these songs. Are there any other songs that we haven't covered? I mean, there's actually I think a dozen songs that have recharted 2 different times. But let's have a great discussion below. Make sure to get your t-shirt below. You got to have it for Christmas. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.